There is a document sitting in the public archive of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission that explains this entire industry in a single sentence. It describes a company preparing to launch a new line of mobility scooters. The filing states that the machines would be based on an existing scooter line called ShopRider, with cosmetic modifications, and that a Taiwanese company called Pixiang would manufacture them. A different brand name, a different showroom, a different price tag, the same factory, building the same machine, with the trim changed. This video is about the 3 manufacturing operations standing behind a very long list of American scooter brands, and about a markup the federal government measured itself and then largely walked away from. Most buyers have heard of the first one. Almost nobody has heard of the third. The third one is the entire reason this video exists. Start where the credit is actually due. Pride Mobility was founded in 1986 in Pennsylvania by 2 families who began by selling lift chairs, and it grew into the closest thing this industry has to a genuine vertically integrated American manufacturer. The Jazzy and the Go-Go lines are the machines most people picture when they picture a scooter, and Pride builds them. Golden Technologies, family-owned, founded in 1985 in Old Forge, Pennsylvania, employs roughly 400 Americans and assembles powered mobility products in Kingston, Pennsylvania. Those are real factories with real welders. That deserves to be said out loud before anything else in this video. But read what Golden itself publishes, because the company is honest about it. Certain of its imported products are designed and engineered in Pennsylvania and assembled overseas. Some lines are made with domestic and imported parts. That is a company telling you the truth. And it is also the whole problem in miniature. An American brand and an American-built machine are 2 entirely different things. And the most transparent company in the category is still not what its badge implies. Now consider the brands that are not transparent, the ones with no factory at all, and understand that there is no reliable way to tell them apart by looking at the box. Federal labeling rules were written in a way that specifically permits the difference to be hidden. Not illegally, not in a back room, in daylight, with the regulator's blessing. If this is the kind of thing nobody explains before you spend the money, subscribe, because that is what every video on this channel does. Start with the rule, because everything else grows out of it. Under the federal regulations governing medical device registration, there is a category called the private label distributor. The definition is plain. It is a company that did not manufacture a device, but under whose name and label that device is sold. And here is the part that matters. When a device carries a private label, the rules allow the label to name either the distributor or the actual manufacturer, not both, one or the other. So a company in Florida or New York or Virginia can source a finished scooter from a plant on the other side of the world, put its own name on the shroud, print its own manual, set its own price, and never once be required to tell you who welded the frame. That is not a loophole somebody discovered. That is the design of the system. Now look at what sits on the other end of that arrangement. Pixiang Machinery Manufacturing was founded in 1983 in Taiwan. It built the world's first 4-wheel electric mobility scooter in 1989 and listed on the Taiwan Stock Exchange in 2001. It sells in America under the brand name ShopRider, and here is the detail most buyers never learn. ShopRider is not an independent American company that happens to buy from Taiwan. It is Pixiang's own subsidiary, owned outright. Federal device records list Pixiang as the registered manufacturer behind those machines, so the factory owns the brand, and the brand owns the storefront, and the customer sees only the storefront. And that same factory, according to that securities filing, was also contracted to build a competing brand's scooters off the same product line. One plant, its own badge on one machine, somebody else's badge on the next unit down the line. 2 brands, 2 prices, 2 salespeople, each explaining why their machine was the better one. There was one machine, and this is checkable, which is the part that should bother you most. Pixiang holds a Federal Establishment Registration Number. Anyone can search the device databases and see which company is listed as the manufacturer behind a given product line. The information is not secret. It is simply not printed anywhere a buyer would ever look, and no salesperson has any commercial reason to raise it. The burden of discovery sits entirely with a customer who is usually elderly, often in pain, and shopping under pressure. And Pishing is not the largest operation doing this. Merit's Health Products was founded in Taiwan in 1985. It runs plants in Taichung and in mainland China, and it operates an American arm in Cape Coral, Florida, which its own records describe as a distributor of durable medical equipment. Read that carefully. The Taiwanese entity manufactures. The American entity distributes. The company advertises openly that it welcomes what the industry calls original equipment and original design manufacturing, which in plain language means it will build your scooter, print your name on it, and let you sell it as yours. Merit's has publicly claimed more than 15% of the global market in power mobility. It is joined by Karma Medical and by Kimco, the Taiwanese motorcycle giant that runs an entire healthcare division. This cluster of Taiwanese plants is the second engine of the industry, and an enormous share of what Americans and Europeans buy rolls off those lines regardless of what the badge says. Which brings us to the third operation, the one almost nobody recognizes because it does not have a name. It is not a company, it is a supply chain. Over the past decade, dozens of direct-to-consumer brands have appeared on Amazon, on daytime television, and in mailers tucked inside magazines aimed at retirees. They advertise foldability and freedom and dignity. Most of them are not manufacturers in any meaningful sense at all. They are marketing operations sourcing finished units from contract factories in mainland China, and their entire competitive advantage is advertising spend. Consider Journey Health and Lifestyle, which sells the Zoomer and the Zinger. The company was previously known as First Street for Boomers and Beyond, and its founders were co-founders of Drive Medical. Retail listings for the Zinger carry a country of origin label reading China. Journey is a skilled marketing operation, not a factory, and it is selling into the same living rooms that the medical supply stores are selling into, at prices set by nothing but what the advertisement can support. So how does a buyer actually catch this? The marketing will not tell you, and the shroud will not tell you, but the paperwork usually will. Pull the service manual rather than the sales brochure. Look at the replacement parts list and the part numbers on the controller, the charger, and the drive motor. Look at who the warranty claims are administered by. When two supposedly rival machines share the same battery specification, the same charger connector, the same motor housing, and a parts catalog that reads like a translation of the same original, you are not looking at competitors. You are looking at one production line and two sales departments. Dealers know this. Repair technicians know this better than anyone, because they are the ones ordering the parts and noticing that the box arrives from the same distributor regardless of whose logo is on the seat back. And there is a layer above all three of these operations that almost no buyer ever thinks about, which is WWOchu owns them. Drive Medical, founded in 2000, completed 25 acquisitions after 2002, absorbed DeVilbiss Healthcare in July of 2015, took investment from the private equity firm Clayton Dubilier and Rice, and was sold again to Kingswood Capital Management in 2024. Sunrise Medical has passed through 4 separate investment firms since the early 2000s, most recently landing with Platinum Equity. Invacare, once the giant of this category, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection on the 31st of January 2023, emerged that May, having cut its net debt by roughly 65% and wiped out its existing common shareholders entirely with no recovery. So when you compare two brands and assume you are weighing two rival companies with two engineering teams, understand what you may actually be weighing. Two labels drawn from an overlapping set of plants owned by investment funds whose holding periods are measured in a handful of years, which raises the only question that really matters: where does the money go? In August of 2009, the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services published its findings on what Medicare was paying for power mobility devices. For a standard power wheelchair, suppliers were acquiring the machines for an average of $1,048. Medicare's average allowed amount was $4,018. That is 383% of acquisition cost. A gap of $2,970 on every single chair paid by taxpayers on equipment the supplier bought for roughly a quarter of that. For complex rehabilitation packages, the spread ran wider still, an average supplier cost of $5,880 against an average Medicare allowance of $11,507. And the reason was almost absurdly simple. The federal fee schedule had historically been built on manufacturer-suggested retail prices rather than on what the equipment actually cost to buy. The government was pricing off the sticker. For scale, an entry-level travel scooter from Drive Medical has listed at around $729. That is the machine. Everything above it is channel. This is the engine that produced the most notorious collapse in the industry's history. The scooter store, based in New Braunfels, Texas, ran one of the most aggressive advertising campaigns in American healthcare. The Justice Department alleged the company used that campaign to draw beneficiaries in for scooters and then steer them toward far more expensive power wheelchairs, which reimbursed at roughly $5,000 to $7,000 against $1,500 to $2,000 for a scooter. It settled for $4 million in 2007. An independent audit later estimated the company had taken between $46.8 million and $87.7 million in Medicare overpayments across 3 years, and it agreed to repay $19.5 million. On February 20th, 2013, federal agents raided its headquarters. By September, it was gone, taking about 1,200 local jobs with it at a company that had once employed more than 2,000 people. And the billing did not stop with the machines. An Inspector General audit found Medicare improperly paid an estimated $8 million of the $40.1 million it spent on power mobility device repairs in a single fiscal year, and a separate audit found $30 million paid for wheelchair repair costs that exceeded the federal recommended limit. Which loops back to that securities filing and to why any of this matters to the person actually sitting in the seat. The badge is not a vanity question, it is a repair question. When one of these machines fails, the owner is not inconvenienced. They are immobilized in their own home. A national survey of 141 wheelchair users, published in June of 2022 by the public interest research group Education Fund, found that 62% said the average repair took 4 weeks or longer, and 40% said 7 weeks or longer. 93% had needed service in the previous year. Documented cases include a person waiting 82 days for a single repair and another waiting 3 months for a battery, armrests, and a joystick. Repair advocates have cited one flat tire billed to Medicare at $300 with a 6 to 8 week wait on a part worth about $6. That is what the badge buys you. Not steel, not engineering, not a factory. A phone number and a queue. In 2022, Colorado became the first state in the country to pass a wheelchair right to repair law, requiring manufacturers to supply parts, tools, software, and documentation to owners and independent shops at a reasonable price. One of the lawmakers who sponsored it was the first member of the Colorado legislature to serve while using a wheelchair, which tells you exactly how long it took for someone with standing to force the issue. That is the state of this market. 3 manufacturing operations, dozens of badges, a labeling rule that lets the seller stand in for the maker, and a pricing structure built on a sticker nobody ever checked. Nobody in that showroom is lying to you. They just are not required to tell you the one thing that would change your mind. Subscribe, and I will keep taking these apart.